Hey guys, welcome today to the Gut Girls podcast. We are so excited today because we have a guest speaker on, one of my personal friends and colleagues, Dr. Adriana. And so Dr. Adriana lives in Florida and she is a chiropractor. To give you guys a little background here briefly before I let her introduce herself, we met in chiropractic school. And so she is just one of I guess it's like Disney, like the Fab Five, I think it is. I'd call us like the Fab Seven or something like that. We all went to Palmer Chiropractic College in Port Orange, Florida, and we met there and just kind of hit it off. And literally as I was introducing her to Diana, she was like, yeah, we've known each other for 11 years and you can't get rid of me. So Adriana, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. So excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I was excited to introduce you to Diana. It's so funny because for you guys listening, you know that Diana and I really have only met in person, Diana, 3 times now?
I think 3 times. Yeah.
It's crazy. So we've built this business, but we've only actually seen each other face to face 3 times. And so I love actually taking a moment to bring Diana even more into my world and have her meet one of my friends and, colleagues in Florida. So Adriana, or Dr. I might even say that Adriana, Dr. Adriana. So excuse me. I'm just so used to calling you Adriana.
I know.
Dr. Adriana, tell us where you are practicing in Florida.
So I practice in Oviedo. The practice name is Synergy Oviedo Chiropractic. So I've been with this practice since 2008. 2018. Gosh, 2008, 2018. Before that, I practiced in Miami right after college, right after we graduated. And then when I moved in 2018, then I got with this practice and I've been with them since then. So it's pretty cool. It's a very high volume practice. So it's very different than what I used to do in Miami, but I'm used to, and now I love it. I love it. Yeah.
I love that. And so I want to just take one more second to say, Adriana and I have been through, along with our Fab Seven, through the thick of it, because it's interesting. And Diana, you may not even know this, but so we were in chiropractic school, but on the weekends, we committed to traveling all the way from Port Orange to Orlando. I mean, and the car rides were awesome, but we committed to traveling there every weekend to learn more of this, holistic person approach to chiropractic. So that included the nutrition, the lab testing, all of that, we talk so much about in Gut Girls. So, Adriana has really been in the thick of all that education as well. And so Adriana, is it right to say that is how your chiropractic lens is, not just, it's like whole person?
Correct. So the office that I currently work, we are known in the area for corrective care. So we are not the typical, we will see you for once or twice a week, and then when the pain is gone, you're good. We usually treat a patient and look at what causes their problem, and then we try to treat them all the way until that problem is completely stabilized. But it's an approach that is not just about getting adjusted. We also add exercises to work on stabilizing the structure, but we also add that nutritional component because everything comes from the inside out. So, and which is why people seek our practice. In fact, my office has been in business for 24 years now, around there. And we still, there's a lot of offices in that area. So there's a lot of competition, but we still get all those people to us because we do offer something unique that other offices don't. And when you have a patient that has been struggling for so long, they are looking for that special thing that they haven't found in other offices. And that's what we kind of come from.
I love that. So we share a lot of commonality in our approaches here today in this podcast. And then, so guys, if you're listening, we have Adriana on today to really talk about a different, so not just, I want to introduce you as the chiropractor that she is, but it's also, we're going to take a deep dive into fertility. And this is a personal journey for Adriana, but also one, that is on a professional side for her. Yeah. So we're kind of covering both lenses. And this is such a powerful topic because as Adriana is, going to share with us throughout this podcast, is it's not something that's always talked about. and I think the way we're going to talk about it today. And so I'm so excited to share that journey, and for all of you listeners today to share a personal but yet also a professional experience coming from this amazing host that we have on today. Yes. So let's dive in. So Adriana, let's go back to maybe like the past 2 to 3 years, kind of fill us in with, what has your fertility journey looked like over those years?
So my husband and I met in 2022. I want to say by the end of 2023 is when we both made the decision to start looking and start trying actively. So I want to say full 24, starting of 24, we were tracking ovulation. I started doing acupuncture. I was working on my diet. We were working with supplementation, and I was doing everything. And then from there, in end of November of 2024, I found out that I was pregnant. And it was awesome because we were like, I remember I sent it to you, it was before Thanksgiving. And that week it didn't feel quite well. So that's why I was like, I don't know, something doesn't feel great. And then by the beginning of December, unfortunately, I miscarried. So after that happened, even though I think through the entire process when I started, I always had the mentality that it is a possibility because of my age, because I was about to be 40 when we started, I was 39. So I knew all that, obviously, with my own experience treating patients, there was a high chances of miscarriage. So it's never easy to deal with, but it wasn't something that I was like, okay, I'm completely done, I don't want to try. It was more of like, you know what, I'm going to actually flip this and think it as a positive thing. I'm going to think that this is a way of God telling me you can get pregnant. It's just not the right timing. So that's how I took it at that time. I remember talking to you about it, and I was like, you know what? This is a great news. It's my first time ever, because I have never tried with anyone else to have a kid that obviously actively. So I was like, this is great. This is telling me that, yes, we're on the right path. We just have to keep trying. So 2025, I started 2025 with a lot of hope. And then 2025 was very hard because 2025, I was already hopeful that because it happened, it would happen again. And I kept trying to think, what did I do that maybe helped? And I couldn't figure it out. So I kept trying to change my diet. I try to, the problems are the more you know, the more you get caught up in all the details. And I do get a little bit, my mindset sometimes goes to be a perfectionist when I shouldn't. So I was just doing too much. I was checking my ovulation, checking my basal body temperature. I was taking so many supplements. We were working on my diet. I did all this blood work and nothing was working. And so obviously that frustration did grow. So by the summer of 2025, we decided to seek fertility help. So just to make sure that at least nothing was wrong, that there was anything that could impact that. So my husband and I did all the testing. We did all the testing for me. We did all the testing for him. And I think it was by, I want to say September, we got the results. And honestly, the results were, you're fine. Both of you are great. So the only option I had at that point, or the only option that they obviously recommended, was IVF. And I've been very honest with everyone that asked me. Mindset of me doing IVF is not there. Maybe it will change, but right now it's not. And I also, even my husband, when we hung up in our phone call with the doctor, we were just both like in shock that they didn't say anything. They just like, yeah, your number. They just pretty much read the numbers and on the results, and they just told us, yeah, you're fine. So because of your age, your chances are going to be IVF, and they just immediately wanted to push you through it. They did. I did ask him, is there any other options? And they said, well, you can get it. There's a 10% chances if you do the when they give you the medication to make you ovulate more, and then we can do time intercourse, and then maybe see if that will help. But he even said that this usually increases the chances 10%. So your best bet is IVF. So it was a lot of push more towards the IVF, which again, I knew it because even my own OB told me when I went to do my normal, checkup, she said, oh, because of your age, you might want to look into IVF. And I don't know, for me, it's just, I understand that I was prepared that because of my age, I was going to have it difficult. It wasn't going to be easy. I just felt very frustrated by the fact that they didn't give me any answers. They just simply said, this is what you got to do. Because at the end of the day, if my body was perfect, so and quote, like they said, perfect, if that's the case, yes, I'm older, but I still should be able. And it was a whole year that we tried. So we still did the ovulation medication. I did that trigger shot that they trigger ovulation. We had time intercourse, all that, and it didn't work. So I think right after that, that's when I kind of hit my lowest point, because it was emotionally toll. It was too much of an emotional toll for me. I was exhausted, and I even had the conversation with my husband, and I even had the conversation with you, Angela. I said, I'm tired. I lost the joy of getting pregnant. I even lost the joy of things that make me happy, because I'm constantly, it's a cycle. It's like my cycle comes in, is the sadness that there is that I got my period, or if I was late for 1 or 2 days taking that test and being negative, and then starting all over again, look at the time where I was going to be fertile. So then my husband and I can plan, and my husband's schedule is crazy. So is mine. So trying to fit in that window, then me getting frustrated at him, not because he's doing anything bad, because I'm thinking we need to do it here, but he's at work. It's a whole year of that. and in my mind, all is thinking 24/7 is that. It's like looking at the calendar. Okay, next week is supposed to be my week of getting my period. Am I going to get it? Everything that you feel in your body, you're asking questions. Is this normal? Is this it? Like, it was just a lot. So we just decided to I told him, I need a break. So that was after October. I told him I need a break. I need to kind of take a time. So we took November and December fully to not do anything, just to do what I like to do and be happy and not have to be thinking about any of that. Because I told him, I need a break. It's just mentally, it's just too much right now.
Wow. First of all, I have goosebumps. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, literally, I have so many goosebumps just listening to you, because there's so many points that you just hit right there. One I heard is like the stress of being older and trying to have kids, which we hear from so many women, right? Like, it's like you're on a timeline. And then I do remember having a talk with you when you had the miscarriage, because it was like, yes, there is a well-known fact that if you try closer after a miscarriage, that the hormones are still there. So it was like, and I'm sure a lot of listeners can relate, like, what a heavy loss, but yet there's like, well, maybe there's hope in this season. And so then you try again. So like, I felt goosebumps there, where I was like, what a heavy season of like grieving, but also like hope of might be a good time. And then, gosh, Adriana, the moment and I remember that call too, having it with you, where it was like, yeah, there's nothing wrong. Like, we got all the testing, and there's nothing for, like, they have no direction other than just saying everything is fine. So, I mean, yes, they gave you the direction of IVF, but like, that was it, right? Like, no other, like, hey, let's work on this, or let's do that. Like, you know what I mean? And so there's so much heaviness in just what you shared that I think a lot of our listeners can relate to, especially if they're walking their own infertility journey. And so I just want to take a moment and say thank you for sharing that. And then I'm curious, to know, when you took that time to like, okay, I'm going to take these few months, and I'm just going to be me, Adriana. I'm just going to do what brings me joy. I'm going to enjoy my husband and my family, because you do have two stepchildren that you love and adore. So, I mean, I remember you even telling me, I'm just going to love on the family I have. And I mean, that takes a big spirit to say that, because I know as a mom, or like, as a mom to step kids, it's like different, you know what I mean? So there's so much that you're sharing with us today, and I love that. But was there was it that point when you took a few months off, of just being yourself, or was it somewhere else that there was like a mindset shift of like, this isn't about doing another thing, this, like, you know what I mean? Like, this isn't about me being, like you said, the perfect Adriana of doing all the things right. When did that mindset shift happen for you in all of this?
Well, it shifted because, and I mean, you and I always talk about faith. I'm always thinking of, there's always a time, there's always a purpose. Like, God always have a plan for me. And I have walked through that my whole life, because every challenge that I had, had a purpose. And then when I go back and I see it, I'm like, okay, fine, you're right. God, I got you. So for me, it was just more of, I took the time to say, you know what, I'm going to pray and I'm going to ask God, just give me just a little bit of just give me a key or give me a sign that this is going to happen. It's just going to happen when it's your time, not mine, because I can't keep controlling the thing. And that's what I noticed. My 2025 was me controlling every single aspect of my day. And sometimes within me controlling every after of that day, you don't realize how much stress you put on yourself. And obviously we're going to go deep into that later, but stress was a big thing for me. Like I was doing everything else, quote unquote, perfect, but I was still missing the big part of that stress response that your body has for, because I'm trying to control everything. So for me, like I remember praying and be like, I just show me a yellow butterfly. I said, I just need something so I can just breathe and say, okay, it's coming. I don't know when, but it will happen, And I remember my husband and I went to grab coffee somewhere. And as we're sitting on the coffee place, I looked through the window and there's this huge, like mural. And I'm not kidding. The biggest freaking yellow butterfly was in that mural. So I remember looking at that and be like, I got you. Okay, I got it. I got a little goosebumps. And then I didn't even say anything to my husband because we were just talking about something else. And we got in the car and I told him. And that's when I was like, okay, I need to get back to bring. That's when I made the decision to bring the old Adriana, happy Adriana, back to it. Because I also told myself, it's not just about getting pregnant at this point. I also want to enjoy my pregnancy. I don't want to be so anxious, so stressed. Even the day that I find out, because I even shared this with you, when I find out that I was pregnant the first time, I was like, I didn't even know how to react. And I thought I felt a little bit guilty with myself because I thought I was going to be like ecstatic and be like, oh my God. And immediately I saw the test and I just felt fear. And it wasn't fear of like being pregnant. It was the fear of like, is this real? Is this going to happen? Because there was a lot, I at that point, you heard so many people telling you, I know you're old, I don't think it's going to happen. And so many negativity because of your age. There's no positivity at all when you're 35 or even more trying to have a baby. It's all negative, which I found it wrong, because then you're already adding that extra stress. Like a female is already stressed about that at that point. I get it. Yeah, I'm old. My eggs are old. I understand that. I'm not trying to fight biology, but I also know that there's many women that there are 40 plus having not obviously natural babies or babies without any medical intervention. So that's why that day I was like, I just need to get back to my body, because I just feel a complete stranger on my body. Also, I was gaining weight. Those hormones really did. Even it was just one cycle of those hormones doing that. It really messed up my body. I started gaining weight. It was just like, it was a whole combination. So taking that break, it was me just taking a time to get back into my body and feel happy, because I said to myself, I know God wants me pregnant, but he wants me happy when I'm pregnant. He doesn't want me the way I am right now, because I was a ball of anxiety at that point.
It's so interesting though, because I feel like, so you're basically explaining this moment where you like disconnected from your body in a sense.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our clients, whether it's infertility or some other diagnoses or just, gut health issue that they face chronically, they do. I mean, by the time they get to us, they are pretty much disconnected from their body. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because you mentioned the stress part, which plays a role in the disconnection from the body. And so I'm actually kind of curious, like, how did you, because Diana and I love to teach about the nervous system and getting people, we strongly believe, and I know you do too, that pain is, it's a part of the human language, like the body's language. So pain is telling you something about your body. We just don't know how to, it's like talking to a toddler. I've said this before on one of our podcasts where you're like, what are you, like, I know you're close to saying it, but like, what are you trying to say to me? And so what helped you ground back into your body? What were like some of the first steps that helped your nervous system get grounded back into your body?
Well, I stopped tracking my ovulation. I was like, I need to shift my mindset out of the baby, obviously making mentality or mindset. So I stopped. I have an aura ring. So usually my aura ring will tell me about my sleep. It will tell me also about my cycle. So I turned off the cycle completely. I wanted to just not have to open my app and see how I slept and also be distracted by that. So I turned that off and that really helped. I also started working on taking breaks and my husband said, I was like, you never stop when you're at home. Let's do fun stuff. So I started like kind of like on the weekends that we have the kids, let's do fun stuff for them. Yes, that there's dishes that needs to be done, they will get done. You know, at some point they will get done. The house is not as tidy as I would like to, that's fine. So I started trying to be more intentional in the time for myself, and especially on my days off, because my days off, I will pack my full day of schedule of, okay, I got to do all these things. So then the weekend I can rest, but then the weekends I still never rest and I still had to work. So it was being obviously very strict with the time that I was spending for myself. And then at work, I had to be good at not eating my lunch in front of my computer. So that was one thing that I stopped doing. I would sit on our lobby and I would just eat it there and talk to my coworkers, you know, and then now what I have in my favor is that we have a meditation studio in my office too. So my boss, he decided to open a meditation studio that is all created from the concept of sound bowl meditation. So in my lunchtime, if I have time, I lay one of the tables and I put a meditation one and I do it for 20 something minutes. And it really helped me finish my day because I have very long days. I have 12-hour shift days. So it's like, okay, I'm set, it almost reset my brain and then I can continue. So those were the biggest thing that I started doing, just up to, I think when I decided to, okay, wait, I feel good. Let me start trying again. It was by February around there. That's when we were like, okay, now we can start looking at my ovulation again and kind of plan it. But it was also talking to my husband. Like my husband, I can't complain. He's just a very understanding person. 2025 it was not just hard for me. It was hard in the sense that there will be times that I will get mad at him out of nowhere because it's not that he was doing anything wrong. It's just I'm so frustrated with my own inability of getting pregnant that any little thing I would just speak on it, you know. And thankfully that he understood and he never took it obviously personal. We will have these conversations, but I told him I was like, I don't feel good. I'm hitting a hole and I don't like it. And he was like, okay, what can I do to help you? So he was very helpful in calling me out when I'm stressed. Are you okay? You don't seem okay. Take a break. Come here. And then he would just sometimes call me at work. Hey, I just did all this. So when you go home, relax, sleep. I need you to relax. So having that, because at the end of the day, I put the stress on myself, even though I shouldn't. But you know, we're females, and it's not easy when you see, especially me that I specialize with pregnancy and pediatrics in my office. It's like you know, many women constantly coming getting pregnant, patients that I have treated for years now all of a sudden giving me their good news, which I always celebrate. I never go into like, oh, I wish it was me. No, like I'm like, oh my God, that's so good. But then deep down, you're like, God, when is it gonna be me giving this news to people? So then it's a double, like it's you're constantly fighting. It's a battle that you have with your thoughts to try not to be negative, because I don't want to be negative, but also your body is like in that like stress of like, when is it going to happen, you know?
Yeah. It's a couple things too. I want to say, like, just ending with what you said, how amazing I appreciate you even so much more, actually, like even sitting down and talking to you like this, hearing, like, it's a reminder to me though, like as a practitioner, you are, you know, seeing the highs and lows of your patients, and internally you're dealing with the highs and lows of your own journey. Yeah. And so to be able to separate the two and show up as the practitioner and being there for them, and not carry that into your own journey, like you were able to kind of separate it there. That's a beautiful gift as a practitioner. So I do just want to highlight that, because that's very hard. That's a hard challenge. But it's interesting that you also, when you were reconnecting with your body, you were doing less. Like we hear this a lot. We heard this in an interview, actually. If you guys didn't listen, we did one with another guest of ours named Mark Andre. And it was funny because when we interviewed him, he was like, on that phone call with the Gut Girls, when he had talked with me, he was like, your first comment was like, do less. Like I was like, Mark Andre, do less. And he was like, what? Like, what are you talking about? And like, you're kind of saying the same thing, like to connect to your body. It was like, I needed to do less and I needed to carve out time for myself and make it like non-negotiable, and communicate, not just, you know, like with what I heard was like with your husband, like I needed to communicate of like, I'm struggling here. I'm going to need the extra help here. And he totally jumped in and was super supportive. So it's like, you did a little bit less, you communicated. And I love that your office has a meditation room. Like, amazing.
It's actually very nice. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm coming to your office because that sounds awesome. So that is beautiful. I mean, you laid it out so beautifully as we would in the Gut Girls of like how grounding can look. And it's not always doing more, it's doing a little bit less, in fact. But then I can't help but go back what you had mentioned, and I'm kind of smiling because this is a big one for you, because we've talked a lot about this, is when you said not eating behind my computer. And quite frankly, I know for a long time, Adriana, you probably weren't eating lunch, period. Like you were
I was eating
so busy. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I will tell you, I used to be that person that it was a 12-hour shift. I will finish mornings. Usually I will see new patients, but I was still adjusting here and there. And I would not sometimes finish with my last patient until 12, and we start at 7 a.m. So it was 10 to 7 a.m. And then I will have a piece of cheese or something like very little as a snack. Then I will go and do paperwork. Then I will eat my lunch at 1. And he was eating lunch, but doing paperwork. So then I pretty much will have 20 minutes for myself sometimes. And it was 20 minutes that because I was in the office, I was still working, you know, it was never like, okay, I had 20 minutes just to relax. So, and I remember when we, I don't remember if it was after it was during summertime that I told you, hey, I'm getting very bloated and I don't know what's causing this bloating. Can we do the gut test? I need to know what is causing my bloatiness. And then we did it. So part of that, they told me, Adriana, we need to work on your stress. And that was one of the biggest things that we saw with that. And I know we're going to go into this later, but it was like, you need to stop eating from your computer. Because I told you, I do have this bad habit of eating from my computer. So that's what I started doing a little bit, but you know, you're guilty of work, you're guilty of being busy. And I did it for a little bit, and then it kind of stopped happening because I was like, well, I got to get this done. So, and at the same time, it was just like, at that point, I wasn't grasping the concept too, that it was not just about the stress of eating in front of the computer. It was that I was not fueling my body enough for the amount of time that I work, because I'm working 12 hours, and it's not that I'm sitting on a computer 12 hours, I'm standing for 12 hours.
And if you guys could see Adriana's, like, I'm not going to make you, but if you could see her stand up, Adriana is this petite woman, but she can lay the powerhouse down on you. So, I mean, when she says she's active, she is this petite chiropractor that if you came to her office, it doesn't matter what size, what age, I mean, she can get the job done. So when she says she was working hard, she was working hard. And I believed it. And I remember having that conversation with you. I was like, you're not eating. And I know, because I've worked, let's be honest, I haven't done 12-hour days in a long time, but I know what that can feel like. It's exhausting physically. It's like, I don't even need to go to the gym on these days. I'm so active. And so I remember having that conversation. So let's dive into that stress, because that stress of skipping lunch, you know, not getting enough calories in the day, that showed up on labs for you.
Yep.
And how did that show up on labs for you?
Yeah. So we started looking at my A1C, because you'd even notice is that I will get hangry. Like, it wasn't like me making it up. It was like straightforward, like after 3 or 4 hours, my brain will get so angry about little things. And even a simple task, I was like almost to the verge of start crying and how hungry I was. And it would be such a change of me eating something and that completely going away. So, and I mentioned that to you. So we started testing my A1C, my insulin levels, my glucose. And that's when we noticed that it wasn't super high, but it was like on the functional level, obviously numbers in that borderline. So, and she's like, I worry because when you get pregnant, your body already is going to be under stress. If it's already on that borderline, we don't want to get it to the point that you get that gestational diabetes, which is very common also in women's 40 plus, obviously getting having pregnancies. So we work with that, and we started working with me eating snacks. And in between every 3-4 hours, it's like, I want you to every 3 or 4 hours eat a snack. We focus on try to prioritize protein, all those things, and which it did help, because then we started testing again and we noticed, okay, this is pretty good. But I think one bigger thing that we noticed when we started doing testing was my cortisol, and which it was why I went back when I took my time to like, okay, I'm gonna get back into my body. I actually went back and looked at all those testings again, and I was like, okay, Adriana, let's figure this out. We can figure this out. And I remember you telling me all that already, but then I remember in my computer now that I put a double view and seeing my Dutch, because we did a Dutch test, and seeing my obviously GMAP test and putting them together and trying to figure out. It was just right after I obviously was doing the seminar on how to interpret the stool test, and I was like, gosh, everything was like, there is stress. And I was like, okay, we gotta figure this out. We gotta, because at that point I realized it doesn't matter how many supplements I'm taking. It doesn't matter. Like, I was sleeping well, thankfully, but I was sleeping well because I was exhausted. So of course my body was like, we're gonna sleep. So thankfully, at least I was able to do that. But my cortisol was significantly tanked, which I was expecting my cortisol to be high. I thought, because of how I felt and how anxious I was feeling, that it was going to be on the other hand, when in reality it was the complete opposite, because I've been doing this for a long time, even before I even decided to be pregnant. Like 2020, and that was a very hard year on me. And I went through all that, but as a typical Puerto Rican raised by a single mom, I learned how to push through it. It was not easy, but you allow yourself to cry one day, and the next day we keep going. So 2020 and 2021 were very challenging years for me, but I needed to keep going. At that point, it was just me. I didn't have anyone else. My family's in Puerto Rico, so I had to find a way to get back to myself, be happy, and not let that situation obviously get to me. And it was beautiful, the growth that I did. But during that growth, I also became an expert of putting a lot of things on the back. And I just kept filing them into, like, later on, I'm not dealing with you right now. And I don't think it was until 2022 when I met my husband that I was allowed to, I can breathe now. Then I started seeing how all that stress was impacting my life too.
Well, and how do you, like, and because I know you teach this professionally to your own patients, how does that play a role in fertility? What is that doing to our bodies in the fertility world?
Well, they explain it very well. Like, when you are under so much stress, you can suppress your hypothalamus, and your hypothalamus that communicates with your pituitary that goes into your adrenal glands. That whole mechanism can be shut down. And when it gets shut down, obviously you're not producing enough cortisol. So cortisol is extremely linked with your sugar. So if your sugar then spikes up, your inflammation is going to spike up. But then you also are going to impact your ability to develop, or at least produce, enough hormones for your body to accept your pregnancy. And those hormones are needed, because if it's not just about getting pregnant, it's support that pregnancy to be a viable one, so then you don't get a miscarriage. And that's in the realm of implantation and all that. So because you go to the Western medicine, and you go to your medical doctor, and they do all this testing of the hormones, and because you're within limits, they're like, you're fine. But they don't realize that when we did the Dutch test, yes, my hormones were quote unquote fine, which is why when I did my fertility testing, everyone was like, you're fine. But what we discovered with the Dutch test is, like, I wasn't. Like, we saw issues with my estrogen, we saw issues with my progesterone, we saw issues with, obviously, my cortisol, even my testosterone was extremely low too. So it's just all those details. Unfortunately, the medical side are not going to give it to you, which is with more reason why it's so frustrating when I got the results and the only option was IVF, because the reason also IVF can fail is because you're still not addressing those hormones that are still needed to implant that embryo. It's not about creating the embryo, which is part of the IVF process. And in fact, it's the most expensive part of the IVF process. So you get the embryo, you're all excited, but then the women keep getting miscarriages because that implantation mechanism, there's a lack in there, but no one tells them that. So then you have an industry that is very expensive, that you're putting hormones on a woman that already is adding to their stress, because we're already stressed about not being able to be pregnant. And now you're adding the financial aspects to that, but no one is sitting with them and telling them, hey, we need to make your body able to sustain that pregnancy. They're just focused about like, we just want to get you pregnant. Even if you do get pregnant, how many women then start having multiple complications through that pregnancy because no one talked to them and how to make their body healthy to support a healthy pregnancy as well.
Yeah, that's huge. And for you, so it goes back to, we've talked about this before too in the podcast, of like serum levels, like hormones at a serum level, anything at serum level, which is blood level, if you're listening. So if you get your blood drawn and you get that report back, can look normal, quote unquote normal, because the body is so good at if the body doesn't keep your blood levels normal, then we've got a disease, or like, we're struggling, we're close to something bigger. So the body will pull from other areas like the gut or, other areas in the body to make serum levels look within normal limits. And so for you, when you changed the eating, the calories in general, adding more calories. I know you focused a lot on protein, getting enough protein in, and your overall like stress levels you changed. But what was there something that made like the biggest impact? Was it every little thing adding up, or was there something that you started doing consistently every day that made a big impact in your shift?
Yes. So in January, as part of me trying to get back into my body, because like I said, I was gaining weight and I was just very uncomfortable. My clothes were becoming more tighter. Especially pants. I would put on pants. I'm like, gosh, I'm always feel so bloated no matter what I do. And I started noticing that in my mind, I went back to my nutritional knowledge. Just like, okay, maybe because I'm older, my metabolism is slower. Maybe I need to kind of lower a little bit of my carbs and then add more protein, more fat, and try to do that. And I didn't see much of a change. So I started researching, and I ended up hiring a coach that is specialized in people 40 plus. So when we started talking about food intake and exercises, and I was already exercising 3 times a week. At that point, I was actually exercising 4 times a week with no results. And she talked to me first, and she said, the first question she asked me was like, do you like eating? And I said, I love eating. She's like, but believe me, I was like, I've never been a person that I like to diet. I was like, but I'm starting to see myself more hyper focused on food lately, and I don't like it. It's not something that I don't like, be like thinking I can't eat this or I shouldn't be eat this, even if I feel hungry. So the first thing she said, I was like, okay, perfect, because my biggest issue with working with clients is food, and I'm going to make you eat. And I was like, that's fine. So we started, she said, let's go. And I told her, I don't like to track calories. And she's like, well, I'm not going to ask you to track calories to be extremely focused on that. I just want to track it to see what is your intake first. And then it's like, but I'm more worried about your macros. I'm more worried about how much protein you're eating, how much fat, how much carbs. So we started doing that in January. And to my surprise, when I started looking at my FitnessPal and what I was logging, I realized that my carbohydrate intake was very low, but my fat intake was very high. And even if it was good fat, because here's, like I said, when I was trying everything, every single diet, it's like you Google and all the good fat, I was eating it all, but I was eating it too much. And so when we started looking, and when she gave me the rundown of how much macros, carbohydrates, protein, and fat she wanted me to eat, I was so surprised that she put more carbohydrates than even protein. So it was like 180 grams of carbohydrates, 145 of protein, and she's like 60 grams of fat. And I was like, whoa, that's new to me. I was like, it goes completely on what I think. And it made me scared, because I'm like, it's a lot of carbohydrates. So you're asking me not to eat. And it's still, I still kept it within the carbohydrates that are good for me, especially after we did the gut test, that we got more knowledge of what I needed. I kept it gluten-free and all that, but I was like, I'll give it a try. And when I started with her, I was 130 pounds. That even my husband to this day says that I didn't see you. I didn't thought that you were fat in any way. I didn't see it. But then now that it's been since January and I'm April now, now he saw me and he's like, it was, you were bloated. And I was like, yes.
Like
I was
inflammation.
inflammation.
Yeah.
So at this last time I weighed myself, and she has me also taking pictures every week. Every Sunday I had to take pictures of this on my body, which it was impressive because then you see how you started, how you are, and it was all in my belly. Because that's what I told her. I was like, honestly, I see the most bloated is in my stomach. And I was like, no matter how many sit-ups I do or exercises I do, it doesn't go down. So that's how I weighed myself. And in a matter of 1 month doing that, or 2 months, I was already at 123. So it was all that inflammation. And it's true, it was all in my gut too. And even eating.
Oh, go ahead. Well, I was going to say,
No,
what's important, I think, to mention, though, that's sticking out to me is say those macros one more time that she told you.
So 180 grams of carbohydrates, 145 grams of protein, and 60 grams of fat.
So in reality, I'm going to stop you there. The only reason why is because most of our listeners, Den and I have been doing this for years. And Adriana, you and I have been in practice for 11 years. Like you see this all the time. That 145 of protein, very rarely does a woman come to you and have that level of protein. So what's interesting is I think a lot of women hear this, and I just want to make sure they're hearing the whole story, because it's not just that you increase the carbs. I mean, you had the foundation laid of protein at 145. When Diana and I have looked at journals in the past, food journals, I mean, our clients are coming in at 60 grams of protein a day, That's a big if. And so that's where I want you guys to recognize, like, this worked so well because you set the foundation of, you had to support your blood sugar first, and you were doing that with 145 grams of protein every day. From there, the additional carbs were just fueling this strong powerhouse metabolism, right? Like that's why that worked for you. I love that worked for you. That's amazing. That's awesome.
Well, and one of the other things that she mentioned to me is she's like, because when she looked at what I was eating, I was eating even maybe less 1,500 calories a day, and that was like still having my quote unquote snacks, but my snacks were very low in macros, very low in calories. I was still allowing myself to fast for too long, and she said it, the more you starve your body, because what people don't realize that when I'm working my long days, my 12-hour shift, when I look at my active activity calories that I burn on a daily basis, I'm always over 1,000 calories that I just in active calories on one day. So, and I wasn't eating those calories. I wasn't refueling that. I was just eating like I was trying to maintain my weight, which is good because my weight was maintained. But within that, what I did is because I was starving myself, I wasn't replenishing the energy that I was exerting, when I was working. My body went to a starvation mode, which what it did is just, we're going to preserve your organs. We're going to go into survival mode. So then everything else is just going to be inflammation. Because now my fat cells, which is something that she explains, that when you're 40, because your metabolism lowers, because of your hormones changes and fluctuate so much, sometimes your fat cells, you're not going to create more fat cells, they're going to enlarge. That's how we get a lot of females with that belly, like visceral, because it goes into your organs, because you're trying to protect your organs. And that's why you see that lower belly growing, and you're like, what, I don't know what else to do. And it was mainly me not eating, being so afraid of eating carbohydrates. That for me was new. So it's still, I eat very healthy carbohydrates, but I didn't realize how much I needed that, especially in the days that I work, because I was always hungry. But then I was like, no, you can't keep eating more, and, drink water. Because I was like, drink water if you're thirsty, without listening to the cues of my body. If you're hungry, as long as I'm eating, and like she always says, prioritize protein, which you always tell me that too. So it's like, if you're hungry, and yes, you might already, even now when she's like, on the days that you are working, if you're hungry and you already met your macros, you already met your calories, I don't want you to focus on that. If you're hungry, eat. I don't want you to stay hungry. I was like, listen to your body. As long as not that you're creating a bad habit of snacking a lot, it's just that your body really need that fuel, then do it. Give that to your body. And I have been doing that, and I was like, why didn't I do this before?
Yes. I mean, Diana, doesn't this speak to, like, I mean, I'm like thinking of names in my head of clients where I'm like, they need to hear this, right?
They literally come to us and they're like, Well, I really am only, I don't eat very much. I'm only eating, I usually don't eat breakfast because I don't feel hungry. I really only eat maybe a very small lunch and then a dinner at night. And I'm like, that's part of the problem. Like you're stressing your body out, so it's hanging on to it. It's not going to let it go until you really fuel it with what it needs. And you're so dead on about the protein. And honestly,
Mhm.
even for me, I mean, we talk about how busy our lives are and stuff. And I feel like I'm in this really busy stage of my life with my businesses, but then my kids just being really active. And it is so hard to hit
Mhm.
those protein goals. You have to be so spot on
Mhm.
and really prepare ahead of time to be able to hit those numbers, especially 145. I mean, that's really tough.
Mhm.
um I did want to mention something in here for our listeners that if you are interested in tracking your macros, she's talking about it's a free app. It's called MyFitnessPal. That's one
Mhm.
that a lot of our clients use. You can also use Chronometer, and that's where you input your food in. And Adriana was talking about what somebody specifically picked those macros for her activity level and stuff. So that's not necessarily going to be your activity level. But I did want to mention, if you just want to get a little bit of a guideline, start putting it into
Mhm.
MyFitnessPal. And before really trying to focus on what specific macros or whatever, maybe try to hit 100 grams of protein or something like that.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to mention that for our listeners. If you're just starting out in sort of a wellness journey, that might be a good place for you to start.
And then I can't help but ask Diana or Adriana, because I know our listeners are going to want to hear this. What does a day look like for you? Like Diana nailed it. 145 grams of protein. That's hard to fit into a day. So what
Yeah.
does that look like? Because we know you have to be intentional.
So the biggest thing that I had to be intentional is meal prepping. Like I have to, like every Sunday, I'll sit and I will lay out exactly what I want to eat in terms of breakfast, lunch, and even dinner, because I don't get home until past 7 o'clock. So I leave my house normally by 6:20, and then I come home around 7:30. So I don't have the luxury to be like, okay, we're gonna eat, we're gonna cook. At that point, I'm starving, and you're gonna make a bad decision. You're gonna say, I just need food, and then you're gonna eat something that you shouldn't. So I meal prep. My husband and I, we do meal prep regularly. I meal prep Sundays. Sometimes I meal prep Tuesdays because I'm off. So that way I don't overstress on Sunday to do everything at once. But for example, I wake up and I do normally I do it whole milk Greek yogurt, which has already high protein in it. And I try to add a protein powder as well as scoop. So then it doubles the protein already there. I add chia seeds, I add fresh blueberries, and then I add granola that I actually homemade made super simple, just with a little bit of maple syrup and cinnamon. And then that's pretty much my breakfast. And it covers entirely the macros that I need in terms of my carbohydrates, fat, and my protein. For my lunch, for my snack, I started doing turkey roll-ups. So I have a whole wheat tortilla that I put the mustard because it's pretty low also in fat and all that. And then at least to have something to as a base, and then I can put turkey slices. So then I can have that right after around 10:30, 11, I'm eating that. And then by 12, then I sit down and I eat my lunch. It can be either rice. Sometimes I do sweet potatoes. Sometimes I do pasta that is gluten-free. And I try to now weight it and make sure that it's within my macros. I always do either chicken or turkey. I used to do a lot of wild meat, which again, you're reading is great for you, but it's very high in fat. So like I used to do lamb because I love lamb and I will eat lamb, but lamb is so high in fat. So I had to kind of cut it a little bit. I still do bison if I want to. I don't bring lunch fish to lunch because it's stinky and I don't want to stick in my office. But I try to have it at home if I can. And then I always have vegetables. Like I always do a whole pan of roasted vegetable. There's broccoli with sweet potatoes. I usually do mushrooms sometimes, but I have to be careful because the mushrooms already have protein in, so then I don't go over my protein intake. And I do sweet broccoli, green beans. Sometimes I do zucchini. I try to vary. Broccoli is my staple. I don't get tired of eating broccoli. but I try to mix it up with other stuff. And I do enough, then I have pretty much the same for dinner. So I just try to like mix match within the carbs, the meat that I do, and then the vegetables. But my biggest thing is I always have protein. I have a bowl full of whichever protein of choice, whichever carb of choice I'm doing, and whichever vegetable. I don't miss on that vegetable because that's the fiber, and that's the fiber that you need in order to your body really start getting out of what we don't need. That's the part of the bowel movements that you still need to. So that's pretty much, yeah. No, in the afternoons I started having an apple with meat sticks, because the problem for me in the afternoons is I in the mornings I go to my office at 7 a.m. I start seeing new patients from 7 a.m. all the way to 11, and then I do my paperwork. Then I start my afternoon shift 2:30 to 6:30. Most of the time is when I stop adjusting. So I'm adjusting nonstop from 2:30 to 6:30. So sometimes I'm adjusting over 50 people. So that is where all my calorie is there. Yeah. So I need something on the go. So meat sticks are always on with me. Now I add an apple that I just roll in paper, and I just get one bite at a time as I'm working on patients.
I love this though. Like I'm like, there's so much inside of me that's like jumping for joy, and it's almost like copy and paste, because this is like Diana to a T.
Yeah.
If you ask Diana what she's eating and how she's meal prepping, it's like almost identical. And so it's interesting because I do want clients listening to know, like, it does take this, like you don't just show up in the culture we live in today and eat the standard American diet and eat for convenience, because that's what everyone does, and get to this part in your journey. There needs to be that intention and that stopping, like you said, to meal prep. Like it has to happen, or your success, falls out. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that. I love those days for you. They're so different than the days that I remember at your work. And so is this, I'm kind of curious then, let's just switch this for a second. Is this kind of, or maybe it's not, but because you said like in your practice, you're specializing, treating, pregnancy and pediatrics. What is that the talk that you're having? Because I know other clients listening are going to be like, okay, Adriana, if I was in your office, like what's that initial talk that you have with them to get them understanding this? Because I also know you don't have a ton of time with your patients. So like, how do you meet them where they're at in that little bit of time, but get their wheels spinning of like, no, this is going to take intention and getting to know your body?
Yeah. So we do a very good talk. We spend close to an hour for the first visit. So in that first visit, we are very intentional in gathering a lot of information. And based on what they gave us in day one, then when we meet them in day two, we already have an outline of where we need to focus. And we are very keen in creating goals, because when we create goals with the patient is what allows me to really know what matters to them. Because I can, as a doctor, I can just look at them and already have in my mind, oh, I want to do all this, and you need this and that. But if the patient is not ready for it, it doesn't even matter. So I have to meet the patient where they at. So one thing that I learned with this practice is to talk to a patient from whatever point of view they're ready for, because that uncovers so much more. It uncovers exactly that, why now, why you're coming to us. Because it can simply be like, oh, I'm just in pain, I just want to get rid of the pain. Or it can be something completely not even related to being in pain. It can be an emotional aspect that they're coming, but they don't think is something that is impacting their daily life, or is impacting how they feel. So that day one is talking about nutrition. That day one is talking about, obviously, lifestyle, impact, mental state. We do go deep into that mental state aspect, because again, we tell them we work with, the work is not done for you, as the work is done with you. And we do that on purpose, because we need to let them understand that the time that they're coming in our office is just a fraction of what they need to do. They need to make themselves accountable when they go home. We can't do everything for them. So that's why in that day two, is we already answer all that on day one. Day two is just simply putting in simple concept, so then they don't feel overwhelmed either. And then with nutrition, you probably have noticed that every time you talk about nutrition and you let them know, hey, we might need to start shifting these things that we're eating, is always taken sometimes with like a lot of hesitation, because it's not an easy change. And when people don't realize how addictive they are to sugar, which is the biggest thing, they're going to fight you. They're going to be like, I don't think I can do that. yes, you can. So it's just baby steps, changing one thing at a time, telling them, how about we stop having this in the morning and we switch it for this, just that. And then giving them one little thing, they're like, okay, I can do that. But trying to give them too much is like, this is too much. I already am stressed about my kids. I'm stressed about work. I can add this extra stress. So it's trying to make it something realistic that they can achieve. And then also we do take the time to do progress evaluations. And then in those progress evaluation is saying, okay, let's celebrate the wins, but let's see where we're still struggling. So then we can go back into basics and see how we can make those struggles a win and change it that way too.
Yeah. That's huge. We've recognized that at the Gut Girls too. And Diana and I have worked hard, kind of poured our hearts into, it's funny how you say that, but like we have these different tiers where like tier one, we're like, and you've mentioned it in this entire podcast of like, it's also the health, but it's the financial stress that people feel of like, gosh, this is going to cost me a kidney to just, to get where I want to get. And so that's one of the tiers that we put into place is we call it like our tier one, where it's literally $15 a month. So I'm like, you can do that, like totally doable. It's $15 a month and you're basically just getting your toes wet, and you're doing it through some of our resources on nutrition, but you get to join a community and you get to be in this community. We actually do it through a group me where they get to be in this community where people are constantly posting like, hey, lately it's been like, hey, this is the electrolyte I'm using. Or, I just posted this morning sharing like, hey, for anyone with kids and you're trying to think like what to fill your Easter basket with and not just all the loads of candy, like this is what I'm like, just sharing like personal, like this is what I'm doing this year. And so it's a community where people get to be like, oh, there's other people out there doing this with me. And it's not, financially costly. It's like just getting their toes wet, making them feel like they can do it. And so I love that approach. It's a solid approach, right? To helping people get insight into a whole different life out there. And so let me switch one more time and say, since we started this in like the fertility, and that's where we're still talking about it. But Adriana, for someone listening, now that we've gone through the nutrition, I want you just to take a moment and speak emotionally to them if they're listening and they're on their own fertility journey. I do want to switch and say, like, speak to that person right now that is listening, that is maybe still in the heartache of it or the midst of it and feels lost, and doesn't know where to go at this point, or just needs to hear a voice of hope. I want to just give you a chance to speak to them.
Well, I'll tell you, number one, you're not alone. It's more common than you think. It's just for some reason we feel so ashamed to try to talk about it. When we talk about fertility, we don't want to draw attention to that, and sometimes we don't want to feel like, oh, feel bad for me. And it's not about feel bad for you. It's that it's rough. It's not easy. It takes a toll on you. But I'll tell you that what I would suggest anyone going through fertility where you feel that you're not being heard is, number one, don't ever feel afraid to ask questions. If you go to your medical doctor and they just told you you're fine and they can't give you an answer why, then challenge them, ask them questions, do more research. Unfortunately, with the fertility world, I have learned that there's only two paths. Either you are IVF possible, or if it's more of an anatomical issue that they can figure it out, then they're going to help you. There's very black and white. There's not much options. It did become a very big business, and I don't have anything against IVF. I think IVF for some couples is extremely important and is needed because there's a lot of other issues that they're dealing with. But when you have somebody that is quote unquote healthy, there should be a little bit more information given. There should be a little bit more of like, where give me more whys. Don't give me this sentence of like, well, there's nothing else I can do. So trust your God, go and ask questions, do your research. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a very knowledgeable person. You can read, right? We can read. So if you can go and read good information, good research, then do it. And if you feel that you want more answers, seek for a functional medicine doctor. I cannot express to people how much that have changed my whole life, and not just in the fertility, in everything. To the point that people ask me, do you have a primary physician? I'm like, no, I have Angela. That's my functional doctor. Because it's true. Like she gives me answers that nobody else has able to do. So just understand you're not alone. Number one, communicate with your partner, because you will be surprised your partners are there for you, but they can't read your mind. So sometimes you have to communicate that with them and let them know, I'm struggling, I need help. Sometimes even looking at some groups of people that are going through the same issues that you're going through, because then you can vent maybe on them and they would understand, because they're going through exactly the same frustrations, and they may have a suggestion that might be helpful for you too. They might be able to put you in contact with somebody that help for them. You know, there's so much more than if you just Google fertility doctors. Unfortunately, you're just going to be put into the realm of either IVF or a lot of more interventions that sometimes it's not what the female needs. They need, sometimes it's an emotional component that sometimes helps more than the actual anatomical component of your body not being able to get pregnant.
That's awesome. And what would you want that woman to understand about her body, like even if things haven't worked out yet?
Well, number one, your body is amazing. And think about it, like, put it in the perspective of like when somebody's pregnant, you created an actual human being, like your body creates. So it tells you that we talk in chiropractic, the innate intelligence. Innate intelligence is our ability to our body to heal, is our ability to function without us barely doing anything. So don't beat up yourself so much about your body not doing what you want to do. Again, sometimes we need to take control back. We need to take out that control aspect and not be so picky about trying to make everything perfect. I always said it's not the perfection, is when seeking a pathway that takes you to a point where your body can function as it needs to function at its best. And then when that happens, that includes that stress level. You have to work on your stress. The fertility journey already is stressful, and people don't, and everyone warned me, but I wasn't prepared to how stressful it was. I thought I was like, I'm doing this, I got it. And then when I was in the midst of it, I realized this is hard. It's been harder than any other challenge, all the other season in my life. And I was too afraid to accept the fact that stress was a big part of it. So, and because we don't feel stress, it doesn't mean that our body doesn't feel it. And it will tell you in different ways. So sometimes it's not necessarily about eating, it's just about working on your mindset, taking that stress load that as a female we have all the time, because let's be honest, our brains are constantly wired thinking about a million things at times. So taking that time for yourself, be good to yourself, but also love your body. Be like, I love sometimes being in my shower and just rubbing my belly and say, like, one day this belly is gonna hold a beautiful baby that is gonna be healthy. Say intentional things, positive intentional things to you, and you will see how the mindset is gonna start changing, and it will happen. And like we always said, if it's meant to happen, it will happen. So don't let people put this negativity thoughts or make you make rush decisions when you're not ready, or when your gut tells you that's not what I want.
I could like cry right now. I'm literally listening to you, and I'm like, you are speaking to me. Like, even though I'm not on a fertility journey, just hearing the beautiful, I mean, Adriana, you are beautiful in person, but your soul is so rich in beauty. And like the words you just spoke, like I literally could cry right now, because I'm like, oh my gosh, the way that you have loved yourself on this journey is like no other. I'm so glad that you shared it with us and with, you know, the world in this podcast, because it's just not, it's not the norm. You know what I mean? We get in those negative cycles, and you've really overcome that. And wow, like you leave me speechless yet again. And so as we wrap up, is there anything I didn't give you an opportunity to say that you wanted to say?
Well, and we obviously we talk about testing. I'll tell you that gut test that we did really opened my eyes in so many things. So the biggest advice I can give anyone that is thinking of trying to be pregnant is do all this testing ahead. Like, check what your body is at. Even if you're going to a fertility doctor just to make sure that everything is functioning well, do that, so then you can get all the data. So then from there, then you can start understanding, what do I need to do? Because the problem is that nobody start to look at our body in depth, and we start trying, and then a year can pass after you start trying, and then all of a sudden now you're finding out all these things, and then it can get in our head to think, oh, I should have done that, and then you put more stress on your body. So biggest thing is to start for the basics. That the gut test gives you so much insight on what's going on with your body. It's not just about obviously what your digestion is. It's all about what your body is functioning. It tells you what organs we need to focus. So the more you prepare your body, remember, it's not about getting pregnant. It's about supporting that pregnancy. It's about be healthy during that pregnancy, that delivery, and even after. We talk about this at some point, right? We talk about that postpartum can be really rough in a female. So, but if you don't have the tools and you don't know what your body's missing, then you're not going to know how to address it. And gut test will give you so much answers in that regards. And it will give you a pathway again to know, okay, what do I need to then focus? So that you're not putting a bunch of unnecessary supplements also in your body that maybe are not even doing anything to you.
Mm-hmm. That is so powerful, because you just spoke to so many women about, preconception, conception, postpartum. I mean, we don't talk about it as a whole. We talk about it as like, you're pregnant, yay. And then it's like, no one talks about what you do to prepare. And then what's postpartum going to look like for you? Like, where was your health, before, so that you have a successful postpartum. So I love that you are doing this with your, patients in Florida too. Like, okay, let's look at the big picture, So as a practitioner, those patients are super blessed to have you. So I'm so glad that they do. I will say real quick too, as like a little, I don't even know, but just making sure you guys realize, like, though, but Diane and I are not your practitioners. We are not your doctors. So we are just, your gut girls, your coaches that are here to walk alongside you in this journey, the same way that I walked alongside Adriana in her journey. And Diana, do you want to fill them in, any new listeners that maybe haven't heard, how they can maybe get a hold of us and how they can work with us in the Gut Girls?
Yeah, and I did want to mention too that what Adriana was talking about was when she was saying the gut test, that is the GI map test. So if you've listened to some of our previous podcasts, when we talk about this comprehensive stool test, that's what she's referring to. And we do have it set up in a couple of different ways that you can work with us, all by going to our website. Go to gutgirls.health. That is our web address. We're constantly working, I'll be transparent, on the website and stuff. So, but what we have, once you go to the website, you can see that we do have those different tiers, like Angela was talking about. It's sort of, we call it a membership tier, because we want you to be involved. We want you to be in our community. We want to support you along the way and walk alongside you this journey, just like Angela and Adriana still are. We want to be able to do that with you in the community. So we have the tier 1, like Angela talked about. That's a $15 one. You can just go in and get started with that like today. You don't have to talk to us or anything. We have a quick relief guide. We have a lot of nutrition guides that actually is very similar to what Adriana was talking about, where hers is very specific with her macronutrients, but ours is a little bit more generalized. It's an easier place to get started. And really some things that can really kickstart this journey for you just for $15. And even things like what she was talking about with her food prepping. So we have lots and lots of resources about how to batch cook. And how do you do that? Like, what do you douse it with olive oil? Like, what do you do? How do you mix it? What are the different vegetables to use and the different proteins that you can use? And how do you rotate through your foods? So all of those resources are in that resource library. And then when you're ready, you can upgrade to that tier 2, which that does, you would then order a GI map test through our lab shop access. And so that one's a little bit more in depth once you're ready, but we do that once we have a discovery call with you to make sure that you're really ready to kind of be able to do, like, you've already done some of the foundational work so that you're ready to do the GI map test. So just exactly like Adriana was talking about, you have to do that foundational work and do the GI map test to be able to really kind of get an idea where you are. So again, all of that is, you can go to our website, gutgirls.health, book a discovery call with us, or get started in that 15-minute.
Awesome. Well, I just want to take a moment and say, Adriana, thank you for the time that you took to connect with us, but also all of our followers and clients, and to share your journey. It's been, even for me, it's been a wonderful, like, you've blessed me this morning with your presence and your story and your time. I know Diana feels the same way. So thank you so much. And we hope to have you on again, and we hope to hear more from you and the Gut Girls. So thank you guys for listening. We hope you enjoy your day, and we'll catch you on the next podcast.
Bye.
The Gut Girls podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. We are not acting as licensed medical professionals. Always consult your doctor before making any changes to your health routine.